we are in one of a couple different windows within the transfer, the offseason transfer portal, the offseason transfer movement. This is going to be one. It's sort of come to a close. We're going to have another little window that opens up. It's not shout out to all of our soccer and football listeners out there. This is not a actual transfer window, though it has sort of become like that since we get a little bit of movement at the end of the season before spring practice. We will likely get more movement after spring practice, particularly as we go into the summer parts of the offseason as some players make some movement in order to try to get in for the fall semester, maybe even get on campus for some summer classes as well. So we are a couple years into the transfer portal era. And I went back and I remember that our very first episode talking about this, when it first started, it was like, welcome to the portal. And we couldn't get over the fact that it was called the portal. It just seemed like very science fiction to us. And I think it speaks to how quickly it's become normalized that I don't even think it's weird anymore. It's just kind of part of my lexicon. And the fact that, within college football programs and coaching staffs, there are coaches who are in charge of keeping their eyes on the portal. Every insider at 24/7 Sports has a staffer who they've got the login for, so that we've got all the information on the transfer portal. It seems allegedly. I'll let Bud address that. But to get things started, like, are there any surprises from when the transfer portal really became a part of our lives in college football and sort of where we are now? Has any of it surprised you at all?
No. I mean, I think that it's to the point. It's to this point, it's kind of what we thought it was going to be. I think it's designed to make it easier for players who want to transfer to give them an avenue to do that. And I think that one of the side effects of that, which was easy to foresee, was that while it's easier for plenty of kids to transfer, it's also going to lead likely to more kids making the decision to transfer if it's easier to do. And I do worry about that in the long term, because it's like, if you look in the portal right now, and again, we don't have direct access to it, but 24/7 Sports has its portal up with pretty good information on who's in there. There are a lot more kids in the transfer portal than there are eligible scholarships right now. And I feel like we're seeing situations where, for some guys, like, it makes plenty of sense to leave because, you're not going to get a chance to play. But I think that we need to figure something out. And I don't really know how we could do it, but I think the portal's designed and intended to do this. I just don't know that it's doing a very good job of it, where the kids need to know what's available to them before they make this decision. Now, they could pull themselves back, but also a lot of places, once you're in, they could pull your scholarship and they can move on and be done with you. And plenty of schools or coaches probably going to want to do that, especially if it's somebody who's, third or fourth on the depth chart at their position. It doesn't look like they've got a legitimate passage to starting anytime soon. So I worry about the kids that get lost in the churn, because we know all about, like, the high profile guys who are moving on to starting roles at other Power 5 schools or other G5 schools. But it's all like those low 3 stars that are just kind of getting lost and maybe having to go to the FCS level or just not finding places at all. I worry about that kind of impact in the long term.
So I'm very pro player. I mean, as I think, you guys are as well. But if we're going to give these guys the freedom to transfer, we have to give them the freedom to make mistakes. And some of these dudes drastically overestimate how good they are. And they're willing to take that risk to get to the NFL. A lot of these guys don't see college as a thing they value, right? They see the chance to play college football as a way to get to the NFL, and they don't necessarily care about the schooling element that much. And they think, hey, if I'm not getting playing time here, maybe like I got to go somewhere where I can play because I have such a short window to be able to impress the NFL scouts to be able to get to the league. I hear what Tom's saying, and our Chris Hummer has done really good work on this, writing about what he calls portal purgatory, where you're just out there. They've pulled your scholarship because that's the deal. Like, if you jump in the transfer portal, the school can yank it. Like Tom said, I mean, you get to finish out the semester you're in, which is why a lot of guys jump, the day their classes start, so they actually get that final semester of safety. But look, man, that's just kind of a downside. Like, if you want more freedom of movement, we can't force the other schools to take you. But I think it is a concern.
Has it altered the I believe that there's probably still tampering in the same way that there's probably impermissible benefits.
What?
But has it changed the tampering game at all? Just because it brings above board the idea for contact, the idea that I can return to my team, but I also can be contacted by this coach. I'm very much putting out a flyer that says interested and open, like the old Facebook status from like 2006, like you could definitely like signal what you're interested in. And I think that, not that tampering was ever the scourge of college football or anything like that, but I got to think that it's changed at least some of that aspect of the transfer as it was before the portal.
I still think a lot of these guys know where they're going, and generally it's just kind of like a double check. It's like, all right, I know I'm going to go here. I know this school wants me. The tampering goes on all the time. It's really hard to prove. You have your director of high school relations or coach that knows your private quarterback coach, and you contact him. It's like, oh, where will this 5-star go? And everybody's like, oh, he'd be a great fit here. He'd be a great fit there. And the recruiting industry is like, no, he's going to Ohio State. Like we already know that like their coaching staff is tight with this private quarterback coach, and like this has been prearranged, and that type of thing. But yeah, I definitely think it, for the guys who genuinely don't know where they want to go, it gives them the opportunity to survey their landscape a little bit if their school can take them back. But otherwise, you're out there with no rope.
My favorites are like the players that announce they're transferring and like 36 hours later they're announcing where they're going. It's like, all right, come on, just yeah. If I'm the coach at that school, I'm like, all right, cool, just wait like a couple more days. Just don't make it so blatantly obvious.
Or the ones who announce where they're going before they put their paperwork in, which means technically like they're not even allowed to be contacted, because some of these kids don't really get it. And like some of their trainers and advisors, who should not be advisors in any way, don't really get it either. And they're like, just tweet out that you're in the transfer portal. And it's like, that's not how it works. This is an actual thing you need to submit some paperwork for, right? Like you can't just declare for the draft without actually declaring for the draft. Kind of the same concept.
Bankruptcy.
Like, yeah, that's
Yes. Damn it, I missed it. Yes.
All right. Well, if you're the coach, all right, because if you're pro player, one thing that I've sort of followed and still believe at least a little bit is that coaches are being asked, they're being paid a lot's being asked of them, and coaches are now, in addition to recruiting high school players, there's more pressure on them to recruit their active roster. You don't need like to make sure everyone's buying in, to have a relationship with them. You're also being put in a position where you're recruiting the transfer portal at the same time. If you are a head coach, do you like this new era?
Yes and no. I think that it is a headache in that it gives me something else that I have to worry about. But I think, like we've seen, programs with the resources to do so are kind of adapting to it, where they're hiring people who pretty much, they're analysts, assistants, they're on the coaching staff, but their primary role is to, keep track of the transfer portal, as well as, it's like it's basically high school recruiting. It's like its own separate department at this point. But I think that as far as the head coach, it kind of depends on your situation. I think that if you're established maybe and you've got kind of a system going, it's not as big of a deal. I think maybe if you're a new coach coming into a new school and you want to win right away, I think the transfer portal is a bonus to you, because it gives you access to players who, if you're trying to, you don't have to completely overhaul and rebuild your program that you're taking over and then wait on a bunch of freshmen and sophomores to become juniors and seniors to where you can win. And by that time you're in year 3 and the patience is already wearing thin with you in the fan base and with the boosters. So it gives you a chance to come out and be strong right away. But as far as once you're going, I think that if I'm a coach, it's like, man, I got to spend all this time worrying about who I'm bringing in as the next play, my next team, my next class, my next players. You're already here. I should only have to worry about developing you and making sure you're ready for Saturday. I shouldn't have to worry about making sure that you're super happy and you're not going to be leaving me anytime soon. But again, coaches' salaries keep rising, and the higher they get, the more responsibility that's going to come along with it.
I would agree with Tom there. I think there is one implication. If you are a particularly hard-ass coach right? And a guy who's like very old school, and we're all thinking of some right now. I think if you're already established like that, you can continue to do that for a while because like you're going to recruit a certain type of player for whom that works. And I don't know that you're going to care about continuing to recruit your own roster, although you should certainly care about communicating to your players that the path and the plan that you had for them is still on track, especially if the kid's not getting early playing time. Hey, look, man, this is exactly what you need to work on. We see you making a big leap in this next semester or two, and you're going to be getting on the field for us, soon-ish, just not right this second. But I do think if you're an AD and you're out there right now, I don't know how well hiring a new head coach who's a real, like, not player-friendly head coach is going to work in this era. You need to make sure that people are actually enjoying their college experience because now they have options. When they didn't have options before, and it was really punitive to transfer because you would lose a year of eligibility, which is kind of insane to put non-competes on non-employees, personally, I think. But, like, you didn't have to worry about that as much. Now I think that approach won't work. I also think, to Tom's point, let's understand what is and is not available in the transfer portal. Transfer portal so far, the evidence shows us that it is absolutely really great for plugging holes on your roster, but not with superstar talent, right? We've not had a transfer player other than quarterback, which I'll get to in a second, go in the first round in the last 3 years. We might have one this year in Jalen Phillips, but I think there were some non-football reasons why he transferred from UCLA to Miami, and he was the number one overall player in the recruiting rankings. So the guy clearly had some pretty freakish talent back in 2017. Quarterback, though, you can seemingly get a difference maker because oftentimes coaches pick the wrong QB or they put too much into what's the word? Like basically like they're biased as to keeping it the same, right? Like they're having to overcome that bias. So they pick the wrong guy sometimes. But you can definitely fill the holes. I just don't think you're going to win a national championship building your roster around transfers. You might win one building it around a transfer if that guy is at the quarterback position.
I don't want to be the coach who's doing the transfer portal gamble every year. I don't want to have part of my roster offseason plan to be like, yeah, we're going to lose 3 or 4 guys, but we're going to get 3 or 4 guys too. Like that seems to me like you are going to never have the opportunity to truly level up to where you've got competitive depth and development within the program that's going to allow you to compete for championships. Like that's, and I think there's some coaches that, especially Tom, to your point, like when you first get hired and you've just got to, there's going to be some players that are leaving because there was a coaching change. You need to get some people in right away. But I think that making the transfer portal as just sort of part of your roster management plan is a very dicey proposition when it comes to continuity, when it comes to trying to build like year over year program building.